What's up, everybody? I'm Kris from Vahi Design, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 books that you should read in 2021. Let's go ahead and hop in. If you're an entrepreneur or a freelancer or really interested in business in any way, then these 5 books are going to help you reach your goals this year. All of these books that I'm about to talk about are books that I have read or am planning to read in the very near future. And the ones that I haven't read, I've heard very good things about. With that being said, let's go ahead and start with the first one. Never Split the Difference. Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. That was written by Kris Voss. This is easily the number 1 book that you should read. If you haven't read this, then you definitely got to read it as soon as possible. It has literally made me thousands in the last year. Kris Voss was an FBI hostage negotiator. I know at first that doesn't sound like it'd help you with business, but a lot of the things that he talks about is able to easily be transferred to business. He shares 9 different principles that are going to help you become more persuasive. And one of my favorite things that he shares is asking for the no. So a lot of times salesmen are going to ask you to get you to say yes a bunch of times, but instead what you do is you throw the person for a loop. You make them feel a little bit more comfortable by asking directly for them to say no to your question. By getting them to say no, that tends to make them open up and discuss it even more. I've used this on a couple different people and it almost immediately got me the results that I was looking for. This next book is The Art and Business of Online Writing. So this book is written by Nicholas Cole. He's an author, viral writer, and he's had 100 million plus views. This one I haven't actually read yet, but this is on my to-do list. Like, this is the next book that I'm reading. And the reason why I picked it up is because somebody in the No Small Creator Facebook group recommended this for writing descriptions on YouTube videos. You don't really realize it, but if you're interested in social media or any sort of like content creation, you're pretty much a writer. Even this video that you're watching right now, I had to write out a script for it a lot of times. This video actually isn't scripted, but some of my other videos have a lot more scripting to them. And the tips that he goes over, the little bit that I've read, are I think going to help make me a better writer. He also talks about like the psychology behind your audience and understanding that psychology so that the writing that you're doing helps you connect with them. So I'm really excited about this book because I think it's going to be very helpful with my writing, especially as I look to expand my social media efforts and expand my social media business. The third book I'm going to recommend for you is Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. Pretty much every book that Malcolm Gladwell has put out, just go ahead and read it. They're all great. But I really liked Outliers because it goes into a lot of the like hidden things about some of these more successful people. So for example, one of the examples that stood out to me was Bill Gates. We think that Bill Gates was completely self-made and he happened to be just so smart that everything worked out just the way that it did. But really, there's a lot of things that had to fall in place for that to work out in his advantage. For example, the year that he was born made a big difference. If Bill Gates had been born 10 years later, he would have been too young to really advance on personal computing. He wouldn't have been old enough to create a business in that way. The neighborhood that he grew up in also gave him access to a mainframe computer. And because he grew up in Oregon, he had access to a couple different mainframe computers as he grew up. If he hadn't had that access to it and hadn't been able to get access to a computer to learn about them, he wouldn't have been able to build Microsoft as we know it. I think this book gives you a lot of insight into how your environment shapes you and some of the advantages that people have because of their environment. This next book is one of my favorites of all time, and that is Shoe Dog. This is the story of Phil Knight and how he developed Nike. It's a memoir written by Phil Knight, and it takes you pretty much from when he finished high school all the way until they did the Nike IPO and he became a billionaire. I really like it because, one, I like to read a lot of books that talk about like kind of the life and process of building a business. One thing that I think this book does really well is it shows how unsure the history of Nike really was. Now that we look back at Nike, we're like, of course Nike worked. Why wouldn't it have worked? Of course. It was always meant to be a billion-dollar company. But as he goes through a lot of the early days, you realize that there's a lot of things that had to go right, and there was a lot of things that he had to be quick on his feet to kind of think his way through to make Nike into the company that it is today. Another thing that I think is really cool in this book is he talks about how his founders have helped build the company with him. You realize as you're reading it that without his founders, this company never would have happened. He had an idea and he kind of had a plan, but it was really because of the strength of the entire group of founders that the company was able to really thrive. Those are my 5 books for 2021. If you enjoyed this video and you want to follow along as I build Avahi Design into a full-fledged digital design studio, then make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week.